Saagajiwe is the creative school's frontier for participation, action, and research in Indigenous creative practice.
It was amazing what Dean Charles Falzon, Professor Lila Pine did when they initiated Saagajiwe 5 years ago. And they brought in Buffy St. Marie to work with Indigenous young people to tell stories at a project called Creative Native. The pandemic hit and everything was locked down. The streets were empty, the university was closed, and Saagajiwe went to rest. Dean Falzon and I had a conversation about reviving Saagajiwe. And in that time, we found out that other Native people across the entire land were saying, this is the time of the sixth sun, this is the time of the fifth world, this is the seventh fire, and this is the great swamp elm, all images of Indigenous Renaissance. And Saagajiwe is on that frontier.
This is a time of Indigenous Renaissance at all levels. The Creative School, through Saagajiwe, with Saagajiwe, is nurturing that Renaissance, that drive in the creative sector.
Where did we begin? We began by restructuring the site, the studio, and we began with Justine and Jaginder and I sitting down one day talking about how we can express the Renaissance and express Saagajiwe as the new sun rising, and that's symbolized in the Saagajiwe totem.
Saagajiwe's totem is made up of 4 human figures facing the dish with one spoon icon. This visual represents Indigenous heritage in the Great Lakes and is derived from Huron-Wendat iconography. And the gradient in the background of the design represents Saagajiwe's meaning, first ray of light.
Research pointed to the lack of curated open source resources for teaching Indigenous studies at elementary and secondary schools. Saagajiwe decided to create Sakozi, the Saagajiwe Indigenous Knowledges Open Source Encyclopedia. What Sakozi does is it collates and curates open source content in an accessible, content-led manner. This leads to an integration of Indigenous knowledge stakeholders and builds Indigenous knowledge resources.
Saagajiwe is already off to a great start. It has been part of many projects that has attracted storytellers, elders, and Indigenous entertainers, people like Buffy St. Marie and others, that have actually helped propel the enthusiasm of Indigenous creativity, not only within the faculty, not only within TMU, but across the community in Toronto. We are here at the Creative School through Saagajiwe, part of this renaissance that is celebrating Indigenous creativity.
Saagajiwe is on the Creative School's frontier for action, participation, and research on Indigenous creativity.